Hi, I'm Vanessa Lee, registered nurse, top aesthetic injector, and a trusted authority in the world of beauty and skincare.
I'm Nurse Janet, aesthetic nursing director at The Things We Do, and trainer and mentor to new and future injectors. Welcome to the podcast. Join us as we cover all the things we do for beauty, weird shit included.
This episode is sponsored by The Things We Do. Come visit our locations in downtown LA, Venice, Chino Hills, Beverly Hills, and coming soon in Oahu. You can also inquire about our appointments and get a feel of what we do through our IG and TikTok at thethingswedo.co, or simply stroll on into the beauty bar and pick up all of your skincare essentials. We want to hear from you. Please send us a DM on our IG at thethingswedo.co with your questions and comments, and we will be choosing a listener to shout out and have their questions answered on upcoming episodes.
Hi everyone, we're back.
What is this episode called again?
How to choose the right provider.
We're back. How to choose... We're back. How to choose the right provider. Sometimes we do all this preparation, and then as soon as the camera starts rolling, I'm like, what are we doing? I turn into a possum.
You guys don't see our setup. There's a light. There's not one camera. There's three. There's Patrick sitting there.
It's a little intimidating.
Judging. No, I'm joking.
Patrick's behind the camera, just judging our every move.
And we're just two little birds sitting here.
Here we are, just
it's
tweet,
a little
tweet.
intimidating. That's why.
Okay, we're talking about how to properly choose your provider, your aesthetic provider. And also we have some tidbits, some tips for providers who I think would really benefit from putting yourself in the perspective of a possible patient trying to look for you. Okay, so we can go ahead and get started with a couple of points.
So let's start with, should we start with the provider part first? No,
let's go into that afterwards.
The patient part. So if you're a patient and you're...
Yeah, never had an aesthetic
anything done.
Virgin.
And there's so many places to go, right? So how do you know that you're choosing the right provider? So one of the things that Vanessa and I talked about was choosing if you're looking at a place and they're very, their social media is bashing other people, and that's kind of where they've gone their following just by, what's that word, clout?
Well, I mean, think about yourself as a person who has never had anything before. What's the first thing you're looking at, right? The first thing I think someone would look at is like, who has the most numbers, like who's really well known in the area. And that's something that's really tricky, like on social media.
Like I was going to say, like followers?
Social media, Google reviews, Yelp reviews, and stuff like that. Something that I want you guys to know is that even though we're not supposed to be doing this as medical practitioners, a lot of offices will give discounts and will pay you essentially to leave reviews, positive reviews. So they're not authentic reviews. Yelp has been really tricky in the past several years.
I don't like Yelp.
I know, and like Google reviews, I feel like you can count on a bit more. And social media can be really tricky too. You have these providers who have, hundreds of thousands of followers, and behind the scenes, I personally would never get anything done by that person because I know what happens behind the scenes. You know what I mean? I've heard of the complications. I know about the lawsuits. I know how people are treated. I'm treating a lot of their patients and having to do dissolving. So how do we filter through all of that if you're not in the industry? So that's what we want you guys to be able to take away. Number one, I feel like, is what that person looks like. And I first stated this back in 2016, but what the injector looks like, you better believe that that person believes in that aesthetic, prefers that aesthetic, and is going to apply that to you. And is going to try to make you look like that as well. Regardless of what you're asking for, that personal aesthetic is something that is a personal bias and will make it to your face somehow. Do you agree?
I agree. I always tell patients when they're like, well, what do you think looks better? And I'm like, well, you also have to understand a lot of what we do is very subjective. Like my idea of beauty is one thing, yes, but the other extreme is someone who is overfilled, but subjectively they like it. They like how they look. So if you walk into an office and the front desk looks a certain way and the providers look a certain way, chances are you're going to walk out looking
that same certain way.
A certain way.
So if your provider has a really strong jawline and has very full lips and has, very intense falsy eyelashes, and all of that kind of stuff, or is a high glam, type of injector, then if that's something that you align with, then you should feel comfortable with that provider because that's probably something that they're going to impose on you in some way. If you are much more of a skin person and, want to look into biostimulatory treatments and microneedling and all of that and are not really into augmentation, don't choose the provider who is a high glam, very obviously augmented, and I'm not even saying augmented in a bad connotation, but is a more augmented type of injector, then it's probably not the best fit. You want to look for someone who really leans into, yes, natural result, but always talks about skin on their page as well. That's something that I feel like is really important. So
when I'm looking for anything, like my mom, when she was looking for a plastic surgeon, I told her, send me who you have, let me look at their page. And if they came from a place of education and, posting their before and afters, but also posting like research articles of like best practices, I feel safe going there. I feel safe, my family members, my mom going there. So I always think about that when it comes to my page. Yeah, sometimes we'll post funny things, humorous things, but also a lot of our page is focused on education. And I feel like that's why patients gravitate towards us because there's an element of safety when it comes to that. They know that when they're in our chair, we're working with the best practices in mind. And we're also working on with evidence-based practices, right? Versus going on a page and seeing someone who is doing like these dances and these silly things, or maybe even posting like I hate when people post celebrities and they bash them.
It's my number
it's
one
such an
pet
ick
peeve
to me
of medical providers,
because I feel like that's just such a easy dig to take.
You
know what I mean? And it's a very easy way to get followers, but you also have to think that person is probably not the best provider for you. Like I wouldn't feel comfortable seeing that person.
If you have gotten all of your numbers on social media as a provider by just doing celebrity before and afters of, mind you, these people are just they're posting what they think has been done to that person, not what has actually been done. And that's how you've made your numbers and have gotten your attention on social media. That's fine. But as a patient, I would be turned off of seeing that type of content. I personally want to see, what do you do right for your patients consistently? Show me your before and afters, educate me, talk to me about these practices. Every now and then, if you want to throw in like what you think has been done for someone, I mean, I guess that's fine. It's just not my style personally. Like I really love when people lean into what they can do well as a provider for a patient instead of just making fun of people's features, because I do think that there's a tasteful way to do, these little before and afters of like, what someone has possibly had done. But what a lot of people are doing are
they're just being mean.
They're just being mean.
Honestly.
And it's a dark energy. And like, let's like not even talk about, before and afters of celebrities. Let's talk about dark energy in general with posts. Patients, I want you guys to be very cognizant of this. There are providers out there, and I'm not even talking about like hundreds of thousands of followers. There are many providers out there on social media who are trying to get your attention by shitting on everybody else and bashing everyone else's techniques and talking about why their technique is the best or why this is the absolute safest way to do it. Anybody who does anything else is just shit, and here's why. That's very different from the energy of, here are the safest techniques according to these studies, my experience, here is the most artistic way to go about this. It's a very different energy, and you can see it right away. You can see it in their face. You can hear it in their tone. You feel it when you're watching the video that it's coming from a mean and dark place. Stay away from that, because that provider, when something goes wrong in their chair, they are not going to take care of you. They're not going to take responsibility, and they're going to say, hey, that was covered in your consent form. Sorry it happened to you.
Also, I feel like a lot of those people, those providers, are the ones who are the least educated, because they get so set in their ways.
I think maybe not the least educated, but because a lot of them are very educated, but
maybe they're just so tunnel vision.
But yes, when you said set in your ways, the tunnel vision, I agree with that. And that a lot of things to them are black and white.
So black and white.
And that's just not what this type of medicine is.
And I feel like
it's just not.
Yeah, it's also just a little bit dangerous to be so tunnel vision. Like in our
Yeah.
line of work, everything is changing. I feel like every year, every 2 years, there's new treatment modality, there's new techniques, and it's our job to learn them, see if we like them and we want to implement them in practice or not. And if
And
we
there's
don't,
a lot of contradictions in our industry also.
oh my gosh,
like
with everything.
10 years ago, we only do things this way. 3 years later,
Yeah.
we only do things this way. And then 5 years later, so we do both of those things again, but we do
Yes.
it like this. It's just, it's constantly changing, and it's a newer side of medicine. You know, it's about 25 years old. So things are still developing. So to be able to say, this is the one thing I would always do and never do these things. Here's why you need to see me because I'm the only one who does this, or only
Yeah.
people who do this,
Yeah.
is really bold and ignorant. And honestly,
is.
it's the type of energy that doesn't care about collectively for your patients a lot of times what the real right thing is.
Also,
and it's
like-
taking care. That's like a,
Yeah, like who wants to be around that kind of dark energy?
well, there's a lot of people. I feel like
Really?
yeah,
True.
I feel like a lot of times that type of persona and aura comes off as that person knows what they talk about because they say so many things with so much conviction. So
Yeah.
how could it be wrong,
Like
right?
they convince people just
Yeah.
in like their tone and
It's
how they
very
say things.
confusing for patients, I think, when you're trying to
Yeah.
find a provider. One of my other hot tips is ask your friends who they're going to.
Oh,
and
yes.
ask your friends who you don't love their look, maybe
Who they're
necessarily
going
who they're
to.
going to,
Who
and
they're
ask
going
their
to.
friends who you think are not getting anything done in a very tasteful way. I don't know what your relationships are. Me and my girlfriends are very open, and I understand that's not the case for everybody. But ask in a way that you feel comfortable with. You know, like, have you ever considered getting anything done for your skin? Oh, you have? Like, where do you go? I feel like word of mouth is really great. Depending on like what that person looks like, you can very easily pick up what their provider injection
Yeah.
style is like. I also think it's really important to look at the type of ads that are coming across your pages and the type of social media posts the provider has in the sense of how they're trying to get your attention.
Yeah. I don't.
So-
Do you feel like you get ads on your page with that stuff? Like what? Give me an example.
I do get ads. So, I mean, when I'm not on my professional work page, I'm on my personal, like, private page with, like,
Your Finsta?
no, it's not a Finsta. That's so Gen Z of you. It's not a fake Instagram.
I'm a millennial.
It's a real Instagram. It's my first Instagram page that I ever had before I started doing this stuff. Like I think I created it back in 2013. But it's only like personal things like wedding stuff, anniversaries, kids things, and stuff like that. So
Why don't I follow? Hold on. Now I'm a little sad I don't follow this page.
I don't know. It's
I gotta find it now.
yeah, it's just it's like all my like family stuff.
Okay, I wanna see that, though.
I have like 100 people on that page.
Okay.
And when I do scroll through that feed, I do get a lot of ads. So I see because I look at beauty things still, I get a lot of ads from surrounding offices
Yeah.
in like Los Angeles and Inland Empire areas. And if you see an ad that is like, here are all the prices on, and that's the ad, you know what I mean? You should know that that office is most likely a mill. Like it's built off of volume, lowest prices possible, get people in and out. We need the most possible patients to come in so that we can meet profit because of our lower pricing.
Yeah.
Pay attention to that and know. And if you're the type of person who was like, I don't care, I need it cheap, I need it quick, I don't really care, whatever, then that is for you. You know what I mean?
You're gonna get cheap, quick results, right?
Yes.
Like, you know, I said this in one of the first episodes last season about like my history when I started in aesthetic medicine. So I started at a clinic that took Groupon, and you came to train the office, and you were like, no. No,
What
you were
did I
like,
say?
you pretty much the
said, "Don't do
office
Groupon."
manager said, Vanessa, we accept Groupon because it's a way to grow our business. What's your take on that? What's your input on that? And you said no. You said it's
No.
better to grow slower than have those types of patients because they'll never come back. You know, they
Yeah,
never,
well, typically Groupon was different back then from what it is now.
it is
but,
so
like,
different than what it is now.
Groupon
Yeah.
is about, just getting the lowest price possible.
Yeah.
And then, like, there's not really loyalty there because the loyalty is to the price. So the next office that has the next lowest price,
They're
that's
gonna
where
go
that
there.
person is going.
Yes.
You want someone to be able to seek you out because of your ethos as a practice and as a provider.
Absolutely.
And that is someone who's going to be a lifelong patient with you.
And I feel like I maybe have like a handful of patients that started there, but only that started with Groupon with me, but only because I think after that training I had with you 2 months later, I was like, I'm not doing Groupon anymore. And I told the owners, this was, the training was in 2016, 2017.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember that faintly.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm not doing Groupon anymore. And they're like, why? And I was like, I don't want to do it. Granted, I was making, I was working 12 hours a day and I was making really good money because I was working so much.
Wow. But
I was like, no, I'm not doing Groupon anymore. I also know what I pay for these trainings, right? Like back then it was still not cheap. I was paying thousands each training. And I was like, I'm not a low discounted provider. Like I invest in my training and this is what I want to do. Or I said, I can just go find somewhere who aligns with me. And they were like, that's fine. We'll put a disclaimer in the Groupon. And when patients called, they would want me, wait, why doesn't she accept Groupon? Like, oh, she just doesn't accept it. She's one of our more experienced providers, they would say. And they're like, okay, that's fine. I'll still pay. I want to come and see her. And it worked. It was a little slower.
High five for the past.
But it worked.
I love a good high five
for the past.
Good job. If you are someone who really cares about having a quality experience, take a look at people's pages, at providers' pages, and really pay attention to how much education they're putting out there. Because, it's one of those things where typically providers, we're medical minds, we love science, we are forever students. And if they're not putting that out there and instead always doing these like cute, dancy joke videos, then you're probably, stepping into something that you don't want to be caught in as someone who is a lover of science yourself, or a lover of safety, or a lover of any of those things. You know what I mean? So if someone is putting out all of those like jokey, dancy things constantly, know that you're going to have a riot of a time there. I'm sure all the providers and the front desks are going to be a hoot, but also if something goes sideways, if there's a complication, would that be the practice I would personally hope is going to be taking care of me? Probably not. You know what I mean? Like it's still medicine at the end of the day. I know I've said that before, but it's fun and it's a beautiful, side of medicine, but make sure that you are filtering these, pages out and you're paying attention to that. Let's say that you make an appointment. You're in the person's chair, you're getting a consultation. Oh, also, if an office charges for consultation, know that office stands on business. Okay.
Absolutely.
And here's what we're talking about. Oh my God, Patrick's laughing behind the scenes. I got that from TikTok. Standing on business basically means they're about it. They're serious.
Absolutely.
Okay? Because if you have to pay for a consultation, which will most likely, most offices do this, apply it to your actual treatment, that whatever you're paying, that office is serious about their time because they're highly sought after. And that's what it's for. So if we get 2 cancellations in the day because of something, or there's like a no-show for consultations, that takes away from 2 other people who've been waiting 30 days or more to get on this wait list for this provider. So know that shouldn't deter you, but a consultation is very important. If it's a free, consultation, I mean, amazing, but a consultation is very important before you get anything done, because that's when you can use, it's one thing to find someone's page, look at the reviews, find them on Real Self, on Google, like all of that stuff. It's another thing to sit in a room with that person and feel what happens to the environment and see the kind of eye contact they give you and the care and the vibes essentially of what's going on in the first couple of minutes that you're introduced to them. Have you ever had a consultation with a provider? Because we talked about last season, all of our different surgeries.
Everything we did.
Have you ever had a consultation where you were like, this is not for me? What happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like when I did my breast augmentation, the first surgeon that I had a consultation with, he was just so, I don't mind arrogance when it comes to certain things, or like even when it comes to a surgeon, I like them to be somewhat confident.
A little delulu?
A little delulu, absolutely. But there's a line you shouldn't cross, and I feel like he just wasn't listening to like my vision for myself, because I was very clear on what I wanted. Like obviously I wanted very natural, I wanted a certain type of implant, and he just wasn't about it. And I was like, you know what, no, I'm not gonna.
But did he say here's why, because this is unsafe?
No, he was just, that's my thing, he didn't give me any input other than he was like, this is not how I do it. versus
Okay.
the surgeon that I actually ended up going with. I told him, you know, I want it through my belly button, the incision through my belly button. And he was like, no, typically I like to do under the breast. It's just a better position. Your belly button is really small. This is why I wouldn't. I ended up doing it through the belly button, and he was right.
But he gave you the reasons why.
Gave me all the
walked you
reasons
through.
why, and I appreciated that more. Also, his bedside manner, he was just more approachable. I don't,
Okay.
you know, I like an approachable doctor, and I always say this, like, it's a relationship, right? So like, you have to be approachable when it comes to treating patients, because you want them to open up their vulnerabilities to you. You want them to tell you their goals, why, you know, what they're going through, in a sense of like why they chose to make this huge decision to get surgery or cosmetic treatments done. So I feel like if you're not approachable as a provider, that's a problem for me. I don't need you to be sugarcoat everything. I like a very direct approach, but
Yeah.
still there you can do that and be approachable.
Yeah.
100%. So I feel like that's been my experience. Every provider that I've gone with for anything has been someone who educates me, and if I say something that they don't align with, they're just like, no, it's better to do it this way. And I like that more. I like people who say no to me.
Yeah, I do appreciate that too. During a consultation, if as a patient you are not treated like a valuable person,
Yeah.
not even during the consultation, when you walk into that office and the front desk is not giving you eye contact,
Oh, Lord.
is
Yeah.
not greeting you in a pleasant way, is not taking care of you, you're in the wrong place, period. Exit and
Make an
here's the
appointment
reason why.
elsewhere.
The provider you're going to see, everyone in that office is an extension of everybody else, okay? So there's a
Yes.
matching ethos throughout the practice. And if from the jump, from the phone call, from you stepping into that place, if you are not treated as a person, then most likely that's going to happen to you during the medical procedure as well, okay? So just keep
Yeah.
that in mind. There are so many medical aesthetic practices out there these days. The market is so saturated right now, and we are so thankful for everybody who comes in and trusts us with their aesthetic procedures, with their faces, for us to be your providers. Personally, I think it's a bit of a sacred thing. Like for me to choose someone as a surgeon, for me to choose someone as an injector for me to sign up for harm, right? Like, you're putting needles in my face, you're going to cut me open. I want to choose not just someone who is so skilled, but also a good person who's going to do the right thing just in case. When nobody's looking, when the cameras are off, if I'm not signing up as a before and after, are you taking the best care of me? And that's the most important thing.
I agree 100%. So now let's talk about providers.
Yes.
What you can do as a provider to really stand out to patients, right? So
Yes.
let's dive into that.
So as a provider, I think it's very important that you figure out exactly what you want your legacy to be as an injector. What do you want to be known for? And when I say legacy, maybe that's a little bit more serious than like anybody needs to be
It's a strong
taking
word,
this.
yeah.
But like, you're like, but Vanessa, I have like 20 followers on my page and I'm
That's
like
okay.
starting out. It doesn't matter. Think about yourself in the next 5 to 10 years, looking back at where you started from. How do you want to be perceived as a provider? So think about who that person is, okay? Within you, you need to make sure that that's coming across on your social media page. So if you are very blue-minded, if the science is your passion, talk about the science consistently on your page. And don't tell me that you don't have any ideas, because you can hop on the Chat GPT, you can hop on Answer the Public, you can
Everything,
hop
yeah.
on literally Google and just say, what are people curious about in aesthetics? And a million topics will come up for you, and you can talk about more of the science side of things. If you are more of a social minded provider and want to talk about things that are trending on social media and what you feel like is safe and what is not safe and what are the best ways to do it, then lean into that and really make sure that you're harping on those things.
I feel like when I do a lot of like mentor calls with people, one of the things
Yeah.
they'll tell me is, oh, like I feel like I don't have any before and afters. And I'm like, you don't need before and afters. If you
I
look
haven't
at,
posted a before and
Are you?
after
Yeah.
in maybe like 14.
you don't need before and afters.
Little
Like,
plus.
truth of the matter is, a lot of the work recently that I've been doing is full facial balancing, you know, the past couple of years. And my patients, it's a very personal decision to share their
Right.
before and afters, and they don't want to, and I'm okay with that. But what I like to do is I'll take our front desk and I will do like what I've been doing lately is like facial mapping. So I'll do an educational post on like how
I
I
love when
would
you do
treat
those.
oh my God, it does really well, because
Yeah.
I think it's like it's facial balancing without the before and after part of it, and it just shows whoever's coming on my page how much thought goes into each poke, right?
Yeah.
Each injection, how much thought goes behind it. So there's a lot of ways you can get creative when it comes to your social media. You don't need tons of thousands of followers.
You can talk about the stuff that you have had done and why you made those personal decisions for each part of your face, or, you know, your acne journey or your hyperpigmentation journey, and what are your favorite products, and here's why you chose those products because the founder story struck you since you have like a like connection. I mean, there's so many things to talk about. What you have to keep in mind is that you can literally talk about the same thing every other post, and it's fine because it shows consistency, one, and you also start to niche yourself, which ends up opening up your audience. Like, I first blew up my career by really talking about under eye treatments and doing under eye treatments correctly, and how the industry, you know, we only had a couple of injectables to really address the under eye situation, and here's how you can tell if you're a true under eye candidate and the differences between all of that stuff. And every other post was about that, and I got so busy, and it was a specialty of mine, and it was one of those things where I was like, wow, I didn't know that I could just talk about one thing and things would take off. When if you're, you know, kind of jack of all trades but master of none, people don't really know where to place you in their minds sometimes, because oftentimes patients are thinking of the one thing that they need. And the next 200 people that are thinking of that one thing, whatever hashtag they look up or whatever is popping up in their algorithm, is going to be that specialty. So you don't always have to be a master of like full facial balancing. Like, facial mapping is working out for Janet. I lean into my, like, you know, Eastern, you know, face reading, and how to holistically look at the face and how that intertwines with facial balancing. Janae really leans into PRFM and her microneedling and all of that stuff, and it's really taken off for her. So we all kind of have our you know, our niche, and that really works for us. So find what that is for you, or what you want it to be, and really focus on that for a while and be consistent. I don't know if you've ever followed a page and then, you know, just saw 3 of their posts and then never saw them again, and were like, wow, I'm a huge fan of theirs. Like, I'd love to buy something from them. That's not how it works. You've got to show up consistently for them all throughout the week. And, you know, that's just the way that it is now that we live in the world of social media, the age of social
real
media.
estate and on the social media platform. You have to always be there.
Yes.
Like, you have to.
Yes. Yeah. And if you're not into that, the best thing to do is work for a practice that does most of that stuff for you and can feed you patients. If you are into it and you are into educating and you want to work at a high-level practice that really focuses on who the individuals are that they work for, then you do have to focus on those things. So that's the difference.